Bo, another massive pay-per-view card for you. The last time we spoke, you were kind of targeting a summer return, maybe in August, but, it seems like the UFC wanted you on this big card at MSG. Did the UFC kind of tell you that they were saving you for big cards like this, and did you push back at all and try to get a fight earlier?
I wanted to fight earlier, but I had a couple of my buddies make the Olympic team in Paris, so I was focused on helping them train and prep and get ready, and that kind of adjusted my schedule. And so after that, I was trying to see what timeline made sense. I said, late fall, and UFC came back with November UFC 309. And I was like, that sounds good to me, so let's do it.
And they came to you with Paul Craig. Paul was in here earlier, and he said it seems like it took a while for you to sign the contract and fight him. He didn't know if it was, to his credit, he goes, he might have been on vacation, maybe he was doing other things, but it just seems like there was a lot of time between the fight being offered and you signing. So I guess how realistic was that?
How realistic was
his
view of it?
He said he thought it took a while for you to sign it.
No, I think I was the one that kind of came to them with the fight. So that was not an issue for me.
So what about Paul is kind of what drew you to this fight? Was it the jiu-jitsu aspect, like the wrestling versus jiu-jitsu? Was it the style of fight? Was it the name? What was it about Paul?
I think that it's just a step up in competition. For me, who I fight doesn't matter as much as the way I'm developing and improving and in the sport. So, I think he's a guy that has a ton of experience. He's a guy that poses a lot of danger and some interesting problems to solve. And so, it makes sense for my career and where I'm at. It's not really anything personal at all. It's just another challenge and another step in the direction that I'm headed, and so I'm excited for it. This is the biggest challenge that I've had. I think everybody would agree to that, and I'm going to make the most of it.
When he was in here, he kind of echoed something you said, that you can train wrestling nonstop for 9 weeks. You're not going to get to my level. He said the same thing with his jiu-jitsu. Like, you're just not going to get to his level of jiu-jitsu, just like he's never going to try to wrestle you. He also said, Bo taking me down and putting me on my back is not a smart game plan for him. So I'm curious, how do you see this fight actually playing out?
I think the guys that I'm training with and that I'm working with in jiu-jitsu are they're not good at jiu-jitsu for MMA. They're the best guys in the world in the sport of jiu-jitsu, and I think he would be surprised how good my overall submission grappling is. I mean, the first grappling match I ever took was against Gordon Ryan, who's a pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. And he couldn't submit me for 13 minutes. And that was with three training sessions in that sport. So I think he'd be a little surprised with my grappling. We can do a grappling match after. That's no problem. But, yeah, as far as this fight goes, I'm going in there to fight. It's every single aspect of MMA. That's what I've been working on for the past few months and just improving and developing overall. So wherever the fight goes, I'll be confident.
Well, kind of going off of that, it just seems like the last few fights Paul has, he can wilt on the feet. He wants to fight on the canvas, but if it doesn't get there, you can hurt him on the feet bad. So is there a world where this fight just never touches the canvas and this whole entire fight is stand up?
I mean, absolutely. If you look at the film and look at my fights, I've had multiple fights that have gone that way where I've knocked guys out on the feet. And, so there's definitely a chance of that. And I think the nice part about being a wrestler is you get to control where the fight happens. I get to control if the fight's going to be on the feet or if it's going to be on the ground. So that'll be up to me.
And he's obviously also one of the taller guys you fought. Light heavyweight coming down, I think he's 6'4". He's very long. He even said I can use my length even off of my back to wrap people up like Andre Muniz. So did you have to bring in anyone just size-wise to get the feel of the dimensions of a tall, lanky fighter?
What I did is I took the speed bag and I just put it 2 feet higher than normal. And then just got a bunch of reps like that.
Can I ask you, what do you think of Gable Steveson might go back to NCAAs and go for another title?
I saw that. That would be crazy. I didn't even know that he had eligibility still. But, Gable's definitely a super prominent figure in the sport, multiple-time national champion, Olympic gold medalist. So going back to NCAA would be would be pretty crazy. But yeah, I would be excited to watch him compete. He's always fun to watch.
I think he thought about going back for another Olympic gold, but the WWE didn't release him soon
Yeah.
enough, so he just missed that window. So I think he's going to try to go for a title.
Yeah, so he won the U.S. Nationals, and I think he even had the world team spot in 2023. Yeah, so I know he didn't compete in the World Championships, but yeah, I mean he's been the top guy for a long time. Ever since Anthony Cassar retired from wrestling, he's been the top guy. So yeah, I'm excited to see him back, and it should be fun to watch.
He's been training with John a lot, John Jones. Do you think we'll see Gable kind of make his way over to the UFC after maybe the LA games?
I would love that. I would love to see as many high-level wrestlers as possible transition over to MMA. I think that the last decade or so, we really haven't had the best collegiate wrestlers move into MMA. You have guys that have had success, but we haven't had the best of the best. So guys like Gable Stevenson, it would be amazing to see him transition over, and I think that American collegiate-style wrestling would take over the sport in short order.
And just last one for me, speaking of John, can I just get your thoughts on the main event between John and Stipe?
Man, it's such a cool fight. It's so cool to see the greatest fighter of all time and the greatest heavyweight of all time competing against each other, and I'm excited for that one. As a fan of the sport, it's really cool, and I've thought about it a lot, and I have no idea how it's going to go. Neither of these guys have fought in a while, and I think it'll be exciting. There's a realistic chance that this could be the last fight in both these guys' careers, and I'm sure they want to go out on top, and I'm sure they want to go out with an exciting performance.
Oh, right over here to your left. Speaking of John, I know the last time you guys shared a card, it was a little bit of fun, about the wrestling and stuff. Have you crossed paths with him at all and, rekindled any of that?
Not yet. New York's so different from Vegas with the PI, and everything's kind of tight together. You see everybody. So, I haven't seen him, but I'm sure I'll see him as the week goes on, and we'll get a rematch. I think he got the better of me last time, so I need to get that one back.
Okay. Is that the first loss for you in a while?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like to think about it, but it's been a minute.
Yeah. And you spoke a lot on the growth and the importance of focusing on that. What is like the benchmark of something in this performance that you'd feel satisfied with to show some of those growth layers?
It's hard to pick something specific out. I think that for me, I'm a big film study guy, so I'm always watching film, and I'm always studying others. I don't watch as much of myself. Usually after the fight, I'll watch it 1 or 2 times just to review, and then I kind of got the information I need. And so, I would like to see just improvements in positioning, improvements in control, more comfortable in every aspect of the sport, on the feet, on the ground. When I look at my last fight, I think that Brundage came out, trying to land something crazy, and I almost rushed the stand-up, and I rushed the takedowns a little bit. So I would just like to see more composure and just better position.
And it's almost like a rite of passage. We have to ask you about Khamzat Chimaev every time you're up there. But since he's fought. He seems very established as a middleweight now, no longer a welterweight, and could be fighting for the title next. So I guess, what have you thought of that last performance, and does it now feel like it's getting steps closer to actually being more real?
It's definitely getting steps closer. I think that Khamzat's last performance was really, really incredible. It was probably the best performance he's had. Submitting a former champion in the first round is an amazing feat. And so I feel like, he's definitely right there for the title shot. We'll see what the UFC wants to do, but I doubt he fights again before he fights for the belt. And I have a lot of catching up to do. I'm fighting unranked guys right now. So, those are the type of fights I want in the future. But again, the main focus is improve, develop, get better at fighting, and we'll make that happen in time.
But we'll get to you, right? What do you right? You're right. So we've had a lot of extremely high credentialed wrestlers, world champions, Olympic champions. They come over to the UFC and MMA, but a lot of times when they come, they've come after they've already accomplished everything they could in wrestling. They still have the credentials, but their skills kind of drop off. They can't make the world teams anymore. That wasn't the case with you. You could still make a world team, Olympic team. So with that said, can you say with your skill set that you might be the greatest wrestler ever at this point in your career to come to MMA?
I don't know. I don't necessarily like the word greatest, I guess.
Most skilled?
I think that, I think most skilled probably, for sure. Especially because I'm the newest, right? And I look at the wrestlers now that are in 7th and 8th grade, and I'm like, these kids are so freaking good. This is incredible. They're unbelievably good. And that might not even just be with wrestling. It might be everything. But people are just getting better at whatever they're doing. So, yeah, I would say I'm probably the most skilled guy. But there's going to be guys that come after me that are hopefully going to do bigger and better things. We got guys on the Penn State lineup right now who are taking amateur fights and who are, getting prepared to transition over to MMA. And so for me, I want to do my thing and hopefully help those guys, help elevate them, and hopefully they achieve even bigger and better things than I do.
Obviously, a lot of people compare the American folk-style wrestling to the freestyle wrestling of these Russian and Dagestan. What advantage does the American wrestling have over those?
I think there are a lot of advantages. I would say, the amount that we compete and in the situations that we compete in. And I was competing in Madison Square Garden, sold out in 2016. I was, 19 years old, and so just to have that type of experience and be competing against the best guys in the world week in, week out, that's something that I don't think you can really replicate. And in addition to just what it takes skill-wise to be a world-class folk-style, collegiate-style wrestler, the control, the ability to take guys down, the ability to scramble, to, for me, I was always a guy that I wasn't afraid to go to my back in order to score points, and that's way more similar to MMA than what you see in most like freestyle settings. It's definitely a really, I think, a skill set that you can't get outside of that, really.
Obviously, you've competed at the highest level of wrestling. You had some rivals. You just mentioned going to your back. One of them was against your rival, Miles Martin. But in wrestling, it's very respectful. Paul Craig, at the weigh-ins, he's going to be face painted. He's going to be in your face. Are you prepared for like that kind of level intensity?
I mean, I feel like I laugh and I smile and I'm nice, but I live in that intensity. When I was, you should have seen some of the workouts I was doing as a little kid. Should have seen some of the workouts I did through high school and through college. It's, most people would really not believe that type of stuff's going on. So the intensity is really not a issue for me. I can turn it up real quick if we need to.
And my last question, obviously you're 6-0, been super impressive, but there's always the critics. They say, oh, he hasn't fought anybody. Now Paul Craig's a real test. But if you beat him, they're going to say, oh, he's lost a bunch of fights. What's your response to the critics?
All good. You're 100% entitled to your opinion, and as am I, so no worries.
Thank you. So we mentioned Khamzat. Of course, Khamzat is a great wrestler in the weight, but there are also several great wrestlers in the top 15, and most probably your next fight is top 15. So who do you think is a great wrestler who you can face next? Maybe there is Roman Dolidze, maybe Jack Hermans, and so on. So who do you think is the realistic opponent for you, and who do you think is as good wrestler maybe as you are, or probably a good opponent, good matchup for you in general in wrestling?
As far as opponents, I'm focused on Paul Craig. That's really the only thing I'm concerned about. I'll have a conversation with the UFC after this fight, and we'll see what it looks like. You see the rankings shake up so much in one fight, and it doesn't really do me any good to try to think ahead and plan out 3-4 opponents ahead, because we don't know who's going to win, who's going to lose, who's going to pop in the rankings, who's going to pop out. And so I'm focused on one guy right now. And I would say as far as wrestling skills go, there's no real comparison to what I'm able to do, in this division, I don't think. And I think that I have the best wrestling in the UFC, and I don't really feel like I'm just yapping saying that because of my accomplishments. So as far as wrestling goes, there's not really a comparison, but this isn't wrestling either. This is mixed martial arts, and you got to have more than that to be world class in this day and age.
Thank you.
Question. Everybody knows you have wrestling on the highest level, but how would you rate your striking from 0 to 10? And what is most hardest for you in transitioning through striker? What is most difficult?
It's anytime you learn something new. You know, I've done a combat sport for 20 plus years, and learning something new is something that it can be really, really challenging and difficult. I feel like with striking, I've made really big improvements, and I'm improving every day on it. I have great coaches and great training partners, so I'm figuring it out. And yeah, I don't know if I can give myself a rating right now. It's definitely better than it used to be, and I'm looking to highlight that in this fight. Right? You know, I think something that's really important about this fight for me is it's going to determine. It's going to show that I'm a complete fighter and I have skills outside of just wrestling. Whereas, you know, the other fights I've been able to utilize the wrestling to really dominate. You know, Paul Craig is great off his back, so it's going to show that I have grappling skills, that I have striking skills, and yeah, that's been the main focus for me this last few months in this camp is just improving overall. But I'm really enjoying the striking.
Thank you.
So,
It's me, yeah.
I'll go ahead.
Bo, Miles Martin's name came up earlier, and I know it's probably not your favorite memory, but you know, what do you recall from the last time you fought it or competed at MSG?
Well, it's funny, you know, I was fortunate to be invited to the New York Rangers game last night, so I got to visit MSG and kind of feel out the arena, see what it was like with the packed crowd. You know, I've been there before, as you mentioned, and, you know, walking kind of under the arena backstage, it was bringing back a lot of memories, a lot of emotion, and that was a tough moment for me, being a young kid and kind of losing, obviously, in that stage, and at that time as well, like just missing out on a goal that I'd been training so hard for. So I feel like, you know, I've taken the positive of that and the negative of that. You know, negative, not achieving my goal, but the positive of being able to learn and mature from that experience. And I feel really, really well prepared for this Saturday. You know, I've been there. I've experienced loss. I know what it feels like. And that motivated me it's been 8 years since that happened, and it's motivated me every day for 8 years. And now I get an opportunity to redeem myself a little bit in my mind.
Do you remember kind of the emotion, the feeling that you had going into that match and how it could be different this Saturday?
Yeah, I absolutely let that match kind of feel bigger than it was, and you know, it was a big match and a big opportunity, but it definitely it overwhelmed me a little bit. And you know, as a kid, that type of thing's going to happen, and I think God put that lesson in my life for a reason, and just to help me mature and grow. And at the end of the day, I know that I'm not defined by winning and losses, or winning and losing. You know, my value as a person, it doesn't have to do with my record in sports, and it's just about character, treating people well, and you know, my effort, my attitude, things like that. And that's really a big lesson that I was able to learn from, you know, that experience.
Thanks. To follow up on two things you said earlier, you mentioned that we haven't seen the top college level wrestlers transition to MMA. Can you give us two names of people that you really wish had, shout out some people that you're miss?
Yeah, great question. Let me think a little bit. The first guy that I would love to see fight, that I think would have been an amazing fighter, is one of my teammates, Jason Nolf. You know, he had a very similar career to me, 3-time national champion, one of the most prolific pinners in the NCAA wrestling history, and so he would have been amazing. He's currently actually transitioned out of wrestling. He's competing in some jiu-jitsu submission grappling events, and so to see him fight would have been really amazing, and it could still happen eventually. You know, he's the same age as me. He's 28, so that could be in the future for him. But other than that, I mean, he was already mentioned, and you know, there's still potential as well. But a guy like Gable Stevenson would be amazing to see fight. He's somebody that is, you know, larger than life type of character, and he definitely has what it takes to compete at the highest level. And in the heavyweight division, it would be really cool. But there are tons of guys that would be amazing. I look at all my teammates at Penn State, Greg Kirkfleet, Aaron Brooks, Carter Strachey. These guys are all getting in there training with us when they have opportunities, and you know, there's potential for them to transition over. We had another one of my teammates, David Evans. He's still on the wrestling team, and he just took an amateur fight and submitted the guy in about 60 seconds. So these are guys that are still in college that are going to do big things here shortly, and I'm excited to watch it.
And last question, your striking was brought up, how you're learning on that. What goals do you set for yourself? Are they super, like, shoot for the stars, I want to be the best striker in the UFC? Or is it like taking it step by step, maybe? Like, I want to get, a clean knockout on the feet. How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's really just comes back to development, improving every day, and getting better. I think that my goals have shifted, and my focus has shifted dramatically in every area of the sport from, I have to be the UFC champion, pound for pound #1 fighter in the world as fast as possible. Like, we need to get this done. It's shifted from that to just developing, improving, and getting better. I think that when you look at it from a perspective of I'm in this process, and I'm not doing this to reach the destination, I'm doing this to just enjoy the journey, then you don't set limits on yourself, and it's just more fun. So, I'm having fun doing this, and especially with learning new skills, that's one of the most fun parts of the sport for me. So I'm just continue to double down and focus on the process and focus on development.